First and foremost, Barakatah Hawa, Barakatah Hawa Shai, Barakatah Hawa, Barakatah Hawa Shai, Bahashem Rakah Kodash. Yahweh is the true name of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shai, the name of His only begotten Son. Harakah Kodash is the Holy Spirit, which connects us to Yahweh through Yahweh Shai and leads us in all knowledge and understanding of the scriptures, and directs our path as we try to do the will of the Lord and try to be vessels that are worthy of the Master's use. Double honors to the apostles, the elders, the bishops of Great Millstone, and honors to you brothers who are pushing this word for that penny a day. Peace and salutations also to the body of believers, the men, women, and children who make up the large multitude. Shalom. Now this lesson is going to be, hopefully you can hear me over the noise. Neighbor always fucking making some noise, But this lesson is going to be going into how music is weaponized, against our people. Let me see if I can close these windows. Yeah. It's going into how music is weaponized, against our people, right? As a means or a tool of cultural degradation and degeneration and demoralization, So without further ado, let's get into it, right? Now, the music of a culture, right, is a very defining part, of your culture. Your music defines, helps to define who you are as a people. So what I did was I had a chat here, with Gemini, let's start at the top. What is the long-term effect of degenerate and low morality music on a population? And it says, the question of how music impacts the collective psyche and behavior of a population has been subject of sociological, psychological, and philosophical debate for centuries. So I wanted to, get into the analysis of the long-term effects. So the first one is desensitization and normalization. One of the most cited long-term effects is habituation. When music constantly features themes of violence, substance abuse, and the objectification of individuals, the population may undergo a thinning of moral response. What was once considered shocking or taboo becomes mundane, right, or everyday life. Over decades, this can shift the Overton window of acceptable public discourse and behavior. Let's look up that phrase, Overton window. It says the spectrum of ideas on public policy and social issues considered acceptable by the general public at a given time. So you see certain types of lyrics that are in the music, certain types of hypersexual lyrics and very explicit lyrics that was never common in the music, which used to be covered by euphemisms. You would use certain kind of code phrases or code words if you want to talk about something sexually explicit. No, that's not being used. And if you, in terms of violence, the same thing applies. You used to use, words that are less offensive to hide what you're actually trying to say, and you'd have to be, you have to be up on the lingo, as they said, to know what this person is saying. But no, it's just all explicit. The sexual content is explicit. The violence and is explicit. So it says it shifts the Overton window of what is acceptable, right? So now oral sex is sung about, anal sex is sung about, murder, straight up murder, blood sacrifice, witchcraft. All these different things are being sung, sung about and then just promoted. It's blasted on radio stations. It's played in people's cars, played at parties. And it says reduced empathy. Chronic exposure to aggressive or derogatory lyrical content has been linked to in some psychological studies to a decrease in pro-social behavior and an increase in hostile attribution bias. The tendency to interpret ambiguous social cues as aggressive. So it's like, if you don't understand what a person is trying to convey, you automatically assume that they're being aggressive. So you see is, in general, the population is just more hostile. Everybody is more defensive. Everybody is more what you call it now, single-minded. Not single-minded. Phrase is missing me. Is more pretty much self-minded. Selfish. More hyper protective, hyper aggressive. You understand? And it says cultural identity and value systems. Music is a primary vehicle of enculturation, especially for younger generations, right? And then it goes into identity formation. If the dominant music or dominant musical output prioritizes immediate gratification, materialism, or nihilism, when you look up that word nihilism, it means the rejection of all religious and moral principles in the belief that life is meaningless, right? So if the dominant musical output prioritizes those things, these values may become central to the identity of the youth. And you see it. You understand? And then you see how they lack empathy, how death and destruction is just normalized. Being a whore, being a harlot, being an adulterer is normalized. Not it's past normalization now. It's being praised, right? Sociologists often look at social capital, the network of relationships and shared values that allow a society to function properly. This is important. It says fragmentation. Music that promotes tribalism. All right, let's look up tribalism. Salakia. Let's look up tribalism. It says the state or fact of being organized in tribe or tribe, meaning division. That's what tribalism really goes into. It goes into division, right? Hostility towards institutions or the breakdown of the family unit can contribute to a decline in social trust. And when you see songs that promote women being harlots, that promote men, committing adultery, and promote violence, what that does is that destroys the family unit. And the family unit is one of the building blocks of society. So without a healthy family unit, which is the bedrock upon which the society is built, without that, then society crumbles. There's no social cohesion. You understand? And then it says linguistic impact. The repetitive nature of music makes it a powerful tool for spreading slang and rhetoric styles, meaning it can be used as a medium, for spells, right? If these styles are rooted in derision or low effort communication, it can impact the sophistication of population's internal and external dialogue. Simply put, it dumbs you down. Right, and if you listen to especially younger generation talk, it's hard for them to articulate themselves properly and to communicate a thought properly, right? Because of the slang and the rhetoric that they're using. You understand? It dumbs down their level of communication, and then internally it also dumbs down their level of thinking. So I wanted to get also a couple precepts before we continue. Jeremiah 2:21. Yet I planted thee a noble vine. This is Moses speaking to Israel. Wholly a right seed. How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? You look up that word degenerate, right? The word degenerate means a decline or deteriorate physically or mentally, right? Decline or deteriorate in terms of quality, become worse, revert to a simpler form as a result of losing complex or adaptive structure present in their ancestral form, right? Having lost the physical, mental, or moral qualities considered normal or desirable, showing evidence of decline. And we always go back to, the origin of the word, which is from the Latin degeneratus, which means no longer of its kind, debased. Right, and if you go to the etymology, it goes further to say that you are falling away from ancestral quality. And one of the ways that our people continue to fall away from ancestral quality is through the music. Right? Let's continue on. This is Jeremiah 4:22. For my people is foolish, they have not known me, they are sought as children, they have none understanding, they are wise to do evil, but to do good they have no knowledge. Right? So the very small population that, pretty much push this kind of thing is now magnified. So once upon a time, it was a small section of the population where this was pushed. Now it's magnified, right? It's taken, concentrated, and then magnified. And this is done by design. The music executives, you see me, and the corporations that push this type of thing, if you notice among the Black and Latino communities, this is where this type of music dominates. You don't see that so much among Asian culture. You don't see that so much against so-called Caucasian culture, Indian culture. You see it predominantly among our people, right? When you look at, the so-called Black woman, you see a sex symbol. You see a half-naked, hypersexualized image. When you look at the so-called Black man, what you see gang violence, right? You see ruthlessness, right? You see, these are the things that you see because that's what the media is portraying. You understand? And music is used as a vehicle to continually push that. This is Isaiah chapter 4, verse 1. Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel, for the Lord has a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. By swearing, by lying, by killing, by stealing, by committing adultery, they break out, and blood toucheth blood. Right? And you look out into the world, even here in the Jamaican context, you look out into the world, wherever Jake dwells, you can see it. Right? These are the things where we just read right here: swearing, lying, killing, stealing, committing adultery, blood, touching blood. This is what really defines so-called Black culture. Right? Everywhere you turn among our people, this is what you see, and it's inculcated in the music. Right? So I should say it's inculcated through the music. Right? Through the music, our population is taught that this is the way of life. This is cool. This is acceptable. You understand? And then the youth comes, and they are even more degenerate than the generation before them. You understand? Every generation just becomes progressively worse and worse. Right? This is 2 Timothy 3, verse 1. This also know that in the last days perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves. Right? I think one of the things that was here was also social atomization, right? An increase in social atomization where focus is on the individual's desire rather than the community's well-being. Everybody's just selfish, and that's pushed throughout the music. And if everybody is just for their own self-interest, then the health of the whole, falls apart, because everybody is just about their own selfish desires, and those desires that they are taught to have are not even beneficial to themselves as individuals. So you see the whole fabric of society just unravels, right? So it says they're lovers of their own selves. They're covetous. They see what other people have and they want it. And they're taught to do that, because when you go on social media, all you see is people boasting about living their best life. And you look at that, you look at the curated lie that is put before you, and you want it, you crave it, right? Proud, blasphemers, disobedient, I miss boasters, that would just describe it. Boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parent, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, meaning you have no self-control, fierce, despisers of those that are good, right? Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of the Most High. And we're divulging into that right now. Right? But Tawada Yahweh Shem Yahushai, for the mercy that we have received, that we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that we have come out, from among this darkness, that we may be able to call unto our fellow man, fellow Israelite, man and woman, to also, wake up out of this darkness, if so be they have the ear to hear and eyes to see. And ultimately what's going to happen is that the Lord is just going to do away with this kingdom and set up a righteous kingdom where we don't have to worry about this anymore. Right? But what we're seeing now, as the elder Yeshawamba always says, is the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is what we're seeing among our people, among the society, among the food we eat, music we listen to, everything. So hopefully this lesson was edifying, until next time. Shalom.